good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you all with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the honor, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And so I welcome you, and I hope that you and yours are doing as well as possible under the circumstances, whatever those circumstances in life may be. And so I'm hoping that I'm hoping everybody's getting along okay as life is being troublesome and chaotic in this day and time. So I'm here today. Actually, I'm sort of a day late, but depending on the culture, the day after Halloween, in the Catholic religion, it is November the 1st, is All Saints' Day. And I remember it was one of them holy days. We had to go to church and all that kind of stuff. And, I, for many years in the Catholic Church, all saints. You remember the saints. Well, it should have been more than just remembering the saints within the Catholic Church. It was more remember that this saint blah blah blah, and remember Saint yada yada, and remember Saint Umpty Scrunch, and remember this saint. Well, that's all nice and good, but All Saints Day in the Catholic Church was relegated to the saints. Okay, but in other religions, and especially like in Mexico, and I've learned about the Day of the Dead through the Mexican people that I've known over the years. And it's a day to honor the dead. It's the day to honor grandma and grandpa, and maybe great grandma and maybe great grandpa, and maybe some other elder that was known within the family or the clan or the tribe. And it was a day to honor the dead, not just All Saints Day, which after I learned about it, I was kind of really, you know, PO'd, right? Because the Catholics did not include, maybe they've changed the rules or what they've discussed, they did not discuss or our elders. They didn't say that All Saints Day was to remember all of those who have passed before. It was more about the saints themselves, right? Which in a lot of ways is like, well, shame on you. What about my grandmother, who I consider to be a saint and how she lived her life? And what about all the other good people that I've known in my lifetime? So, the saints preserved, that why didn't they include grandma or grandpa or anybody else that we knew as part of this, All Saints Day routine within the Catholic Church? Now, it might have started out that way, but so to I will say to at least the Mexican people, and I would, from what I know about the Spanish people, they kind of sort of feel the same way in a lot of ways. I mean, further south, it's not just Mexicans, it is Spanish speaking people down all the way down into South America. That, yesterday, November the 1st, and some, depending, it's a several day ritual where they don't just do it for one day, they do it for several days, that they set up little altars. They put food out. They'll put a picture of grandma or grandpa or the family or whoever that they're, whoever the elder is or was that they're um, honoring. So my dear friend Patricia would make this special dessert that her grandmother taught her, that her grandmother loved. So she would make this dessert and a little plate, and there would be some other things there. And there was a picture of grandma, and there was this little altar, which was nothing more than a table with a tablecloth put over it. There was a crucifix there, blessings for all, because they were basically Christian, had Catholic background. So that grandma was there in her picture, and I say this little altar, there was a plate with some food on it for grandma. There was another uncle or some other folks. Anyway, she had their pictures set up on the table. There were some other things, but mostly it was like food. Or so there was a candle in front of each of these little, the picture, whatever there was. Hey, Tracy, how are you? Yes, it is that time. And so I'll join you. And in honor to all my friends who have passed. So we've lost several friends of mine this last year and a half, 2 years. Some folks within just the last couple of months. And of course, my heart attack and near death experience, which was a lot of fun. Um, but honoring my grandmother and other folkses who have passed before us, on this Day of the Dead, it isn't just about All Saints. It's about honoring those folks who made a difference in our lives. So I've spoken about my granny many times, and so of course my thoughts go out to granny on this day, but also on my pops, who my uncle who adopted me and my sister and kept us out of the orphanage scenario thingy, and um whether that ended up being a good thing or not, but so from our parents who have passed, uncles, cousins, dear friends for a long time, a friend of the families that I've known just, for a good 60 years, because I was at least 10 when we met the family. So who passed away about 2 weeks ago. Um, and my first wife, my daughter's mother passed away about 2 months ago now. And my dear friend Marcia of many years passed away. Now it's been 2 years ago now, but or going on 2 years. And other dear friends of mine who have passed away. And not just family members, but dear lifelong friends. Yeah, thank you, Tracy. But I'm not saying this to be sorry. I'm here to say, and I thank you. But this isn't a plight to ask for, um, God, I hate to use the word, but pity, or thank you for your loss and so forth. Well, and thank you for that. But it's to honor their lives and to bring joy. It's like, ween, hey, let's all, send some smiles um, um, and rejoice in the life that they had. To rejoice in the memories that I had with some of these folks that I have known for a long time. We all have to go someday. Yep, I understand what you're coming from. Yep, celebration of life. And so that's what I mean by the Day of the Dead. And where the Catholics, it's All Saints Day. But many of my friends, they weren't saints. Some of them were far from it. but in the long run, they didn't really hurt anybody, or they weren't haters or whatever, but they weren't necessarily, um, walk that line like some people would think. They didn't go to church, and and they drank, and but they were still good people. They still helped others. They still worked in the community. They were, viable persons, and were good friends for many years. So, and there are several people that in my mind I'm thinking of at this time. But that elders that I don't know or didn't know, like for my last name is Null. I was adopted. My father's last name is Lee. And I've discussed this before, in that there's a high probability, above 85%, that I am related to Robert E. Lee. And because of the family history that goes back through Kentucky, there are still family members who live in Hazard County, Kentucky. The Lee family, that's where we're from. And so, but I was because they were not married at the time, I retained my mother's last name, which was Null. And so, and I was adopted by my uncle, so there was no name change in there. But in discussing about the Lees, there were grandmother was Cherokee, grandmother was half Cherokee, and great great grandmother was supposed to have been full bleed Cherokee. So to those who I know that in my heart that I've always had this native thing to me. Growing up as a Boy Scout, and learning Indian traditions and things, and how to track, and how to set snares, and how to find, the Boy Scout handbook was have a lot of Native American stuff, a lot of Indian stuff, and which was pioneer stuff too. But to the point though, so I can say to, this morning, tonight, this morning, depending on where you are. Um, right now I'm still on Central Time, so I'm, me, I didn't change my clocks, and this coming Sunday, guess what? Um, I think is the 6th is when y'all get to change your clocks back, and I'm still on my own time, so y'all get to catch up with me. But so here in my house, it's still 11:30. But anyway, so it's still the Day of the Dead. It's still November the 1st to me. But anyway, so what does time have to do with this? Well, time for me would be, I wonder what my grandmothers were like. But I would like to give them honor, because going back all these generations, that I have somehow acquired, I think, some of my grandmothers, because I have this native thing that I have felt even as a child. Regardless of Boy Scouts or whatever, it was just in me. I understood Mother Earth. Um, I understood nature. I used to just go sit in the field and sit in the woods, and I was always headed for the woods. We were always going to the river. We were always going to the swamp around Tampa. Uh, you know, we grew up to where the river was literally across the street from my grandmother, the Hillsborough River, and Rowlett Park. So nature was always a part of my life, but I always felt it more than some other folks. And my next door neighbors, they were descendants, pure blood, their grandmother and grandfather, who lived across the street from my grandmother, from Granny. She wasn't really related to me, but they were true Seminole Indian. I mean, sure enough, full bleed Seminole Indian. And so there was this in growing up that I felt and grew up around, and it was just there. Well, other folks did not get that. It's okay. But I thank my ancestors and I honor them because without my great grandmother and great great grandmother and grandmother and whatever tradition and bloodline has come down through me, I thank them. Even though I don't know their names, I don't, they've been real sketchy about sharing any information with me because I'm a real black sheep to the family. And my brothers, they're just not really interested where I am. And some of the aunts and uncles who've passed away now, that information is probably hanging around somewhere among the Lee family up there in Ohio. But whether or not I actually can find out about it or not, well, we'll see. I understand that um, through it's like cemeteries.com or some there's some place that you can, who's buried here and who is buried where. And anyway, it's a strange thing. My one of my brother found out some back history um, by going to this site. But anyway, so who do we honor today? And how many of us on this planet actually honor those who've come before us? I mean, do you honor your mother and father still? Do you honor your grandmother? Do you honor the heritage of your family in any way? And I'm not saying that you should, but if they put you here, you know, y- through them, one way or the other, without them, you wouldn't be here, without your elders and those who came before. So, you could be pissed off at your family for putting you on this earth and go, damn it, I had no choice in the matter. How dare you put me on this planet? And at the same time, I mean, so it all depends on how you want to look at the bigger picture. But I think in the long run that it's if you want to pick a day out of the year to honor your ancestors, okie dokie, I'm down with that. You know what I mean? Whether you wave skeletons like the Mexicans and a lot of the southern folks all the way down through the Americas. Um, it's not that they're satanic or that they're worshiping anything. It's just a representation of the dead and that they don't want to be as scared of it. They don't want to be afraid of it. So these dancing skeletons are to be, they've usually got smiles on their faces and they look kind of creepy, and some of them have hats on their heads. But the basic thing is hey there, how are you? The basic thing though is to not be afraid of death. So you see skeletons dancing and ooh, and that's got to be some kind of horrible ritual or any. Nah, the ritual is that they're not afraid of death. So here's skeletons and we're making them dance and everything. It's to honor the dead. It's not to be, to a lot of folks, it'd be creepy, but if you haven't grown up in that culture, if you don't know what that culture means, by dancing skeletons having nothing to do with Halloween, okay? Only partially, but that we honor the dead. So I think we should honor our ancestors more than just once a year. But if it is just once a year that people will pay attention, it's kind of sort of like Christmas. Well, there are folks at Christmas time or at Thanksgiving, they remember, you know, Thanksgiving's past or holidays past, and they'll remember family members or whatever, and they'll pull out the scrapbook and everybody will look. But as far as November the 1st being All Saints Day for the Catholics, I don't know how it is for other traditions, but I know it's a big deal in the South American countries and in Mexico and so forth. And why not honor the dead? And why not make them a special pie and put a piece in front of a candle in front of the picture of grandma who gave you the recipe to make the pie in honor of this person, you know? So happy Day of the Dead, to those, for me, like I said, it's only, well, it's going on 12 o'clock here. So happy Day of the Dead still, and remembering those who came before us. November the 1st is my granddaughter's birthday, and I texted her earlier and wished her a happy birthday, and she said it'd been a full day and a good day for her. So that's good. So Day of the Dead and a birthday for a grandchild, okie dokie. I know that to a lot of folks, it's just the day after Halloween, you know, and that's all it means. Okay, it's a day when you have large bowls of candy left over, and or that you're still munching on, or whatever. It's for those folks who thought that it was the devil's day and all this. Yeah, okay. Well, all those spirits are supposed to be, wrapped up and gone to Betty by now because it's the first, and now for most folks, it's going on the 2nd of November. So all that hanky panky should be over with, right? Well, there's negative spiritual. Bossy man, how you doing? I'm doing all right. I'm getting by. Things have been a little slow for me. I wished I'm sleeping way too much. And I don't know if it's, creators got stuff I need to learn in the dream time, or but I'm sleeping way too much. But my blood pressure's down, my heart's doing okay. I've been going to the doctor. I go to therapy tomorrow. I'm every Wednesday now for the next 6 weeks, and I've been taking my meds. So, and I'm grateful that I'm still here. In thinking about the elders, yeah, good to hear you're doing good. But so, um, in my culture, if you will, having been Catholic, having transitioned, into the native traditions and things, and the dear friends that I've known over the years who are Mexican and who, today was a very special day for them. I'm not sure if they're still alive, so it's hard for me to say that they still celebrate. Maybe someone celebrates in their honor now. But that a curious thought came across my brain earlier, and it was for somebody else. It was like when when I was on earlier with on Robert's show, that we were talking about this one Indian chief who had lost his entire family and everybody who knew him basically, and that there was no one to mourn for him. There was no one to remember him. And I thought to myself, my situation at the moment is like, not that I'm worried about it, but it was like, would there be anyone to light a candle for me? And I'm not soliciting for, oh, when you go, we're all going to like that. That's not where I'm headed. But I was like, um, as a shaman in training, will I have achieved a spot, if you will, where someone would regard me or my remembering me or whatever and light a candle on, for an elder, you know, that sounds very egotistical, but I don't mean it that way. I was just like, I wonder if I will, and you got to be humble about this, right? So, um, for me, I still remember my granny, and and other people that were very influential in my life that, I light a candle, and say, yeah, on this day of remembrance of those who came before us, absolutely, to my uncle and to my aunt and to this person and to that person and to this person who I only met once, that had an influence. There was a trucker, for example, that picked me up at like 5:30 in the morning one time when I was about to freeze to death, and I'm not lying, and put me in the warm cab of his truck, took me into Thomasville from Florida, bought me breakfast, and sent me on my way. And I don't know his name. I can still kind of sort of see his face. I can still remember being in that cab of his truck, and thanking him for. Uh, where you close to your mama and papa? Not, no, not really. I was adopted. And so there was a lot of animosity with my adopted mother. My uncle was my uncle. He was my pops. And after Becky died, his mother, I mean his wife, I don't like to call her mother because she really wasn't a mother. She was a mother, if you understand in those terms. But I will still say she put up with me. She still, in her own demented way, raised us. But when she died and I got to know my pops, he was a really nice guy. We got along well and spent time together. So, to Arnie, to Arno W. Knoll Jr., thank you so much for, as an elder. Thank you so much for adopting me and my sister. And thank you so much for the things that you gave us while you were alive. And so it's been 22 years ago now that he's passed away. But, his picture hangs on the wall along with my grandmother and grandfather over there, a marriage picture. And so I'm always, when I see their picture, I'm always thanking them, you know, because their picture hangs on the wall. That is my thank you to them. That is my remembrance of them and to them, you know. And so if someone's special, there's a picture of a group of my aunts and uncles. So, I honor all of them because in some way they played a part in my life early on, but they still played a part in my life. So why not honor the family? There's not a picture of my grandma. No, because she was the wicked witch of the West. Do you celebrate the Day of the Dead? That's sort of why I'm here, Mossy Man. Um, in that I don't celebrate it as strongly, but knowing that November the 1st is All Saints' Day, the Day of the Dead, yes. So in recent years, it's just the day, it's just not really special, but it's that if other cultures are remembering their dead and honoring their dead, then why not me too? You know, I mean, I honor them most of the time, but like a special shout out today, if you will. Does that make sense? So, but it's because of the Mexican folks that I have met and their cultural impact on me and understanding it on a spiritual level because my friend Patricia, she was like, no, no, David, special day, we honor my grandmother and my grandfather, and they put pictures out, and she set this table, and it was all very basic, but it was that she made the effort. It was the ritual of lighting the candle. It was the ritual of making this special food and having a small plate. And on this table that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet long, you know, um, a, a folding table. They're 5, 6 foot long, regular folding table that people would sit around and eat anyway. But up against a wall so she could put the altar. But this table was filled with pictures of family members. And so, there was pie, there was some kind of bread, there were little treats on these little plates that she had made for each of these folks. And there was a candle there was a central candle with a crucifix, and a candle, and then there were the individual pictures with the candles lit for each of the family members, or it was like grandma and grandpa were together. So, but anyway, so it was very interesting. But having known her for several years, and after several Halloweens, having participated with her for that quote Day of the Dead with her and her, you know, because most of her family, well, almost all of her family was still in Mexico, and she was up here in Georgia. So she was, it really meant a lot to her to remember not only her long gone relatives, but also her relatives that she missed. Just, they weren't dead, but she missed them. So it was a day to honor them, even though they weren't gone. You know what I mean? So it was a day to have, to have food. It was a day to honor her relatives, past and present. And so I was just like, I don't celebrate the same way she does. I don't have the same cultural ties. But why not remember, if there's going to be a special day that I can extra remember those elders and friends that have passed, why not? You know, every day's a good day to send prayers out. Every day is a good day to remember those who have meant something to us in our life. Not in a nostalgic, oh, I miss them. Oh, well, there is some of that. But I've had to change, for me, I've changed that nostalgia into, wow, we had such good times. And instead of, but I miss them and I wish they were here and I'm so sad. Yeah, that the morning of that is over, as in sadness and crying and tears. Now it's the joy that we had, as my friend Marcia, that 40 years of doing crazy shit, middle of the night and decide to drive to Florida to go to the beach. I mean, just pull up and just go do something at the spur of the moment, no matter what time that moment was. So, the spontaneity of life, I miss that with my dear friend Marcia. But the spontaneity of life is still here. It's my choice whether or not to be spontaneous or not. Any plans on having a garden coming up in the spring? Um, I actually am trying to get a winter garden in more than spring at the moment. If I could finish my greenhouse thing up on the side of the house and over here, it won't be just a garden in the spring. It'll be gardening all the time. But yeah, Mossy man, having this heart attack and having to deal with all these medicines and how they make me feel, it really slowed me down. And personally, I'm fighting it. I really don't want to give up, and I'm not. I'm not giving up on life, but it's been quite a struggle here. So I'm hoping that my system will get used to these meds. They won't make me as sleepy, yada yada, and I can get back on a more better term. Um, because and I say that y'all don't know this, but I really wanted to have had some things planted already. And it's in some ways it's almost too late, but During the cool of the year and into the spring is the time to plant greens and broccoli and stuff like that down here. A lot of cabbage grown this time of year. Hey Joe, how are you doing? Hey, 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 right back at you. I seen your videos last year outside. You were kicking butt. Yeah, collard greens. Yeah, I mean, I should have already had collards in the ground, and I don't. But I've had a lot of overgrowth this year in my garden that is requiring a lot of time to clean up. Where in past years, um, there are weeds and things and stuff that grew up in my garden that, because I had my heart attack in July, that just messed everything up. So where I was kind of sort of keeping the garden down, it got overrun. And so I can't just go in there and plant seeds because I can't find the garden. And I was hoping that I was going to have some folks that come and help me. I got little tillers and things and stuff, but all these weeds and things, you got to give them out. And if you just mow them down, then their little seeds will get in the ground, and I will have 100 times more of these weeds next year. And the only way to get rid of them is to pull them up. The maple tree out back just changed colors. It's a month late. Wow, Joe. Now, down here, what part of the world are you in, Joe? Down here, we've had some things that the leaves are already off, and this big oak tree that's over the house is pelting me. I mean, it's like doom, boom, doom. The acorns that have fallen and bounce off of the outside and hit the window all times of the day and night. Is noisy. Idaho, wow. And it just changed colors. Wow. Okra. Oh Lord. Yeah, I've got a half a pound of okra seeds that I did not get planted, but I bought them before I had the heart attack and was in the process of hoping to plant. And so I've not had any fresh okra myself. I like to eat it raw, just right off the stalk. When it's about this long, oh my God. If I was back home, I would. Yeah. Yeah, there are people that could use some extra money, and I've got other things I could trade. I mean, there are things around the house or, but barter trade, I'm willing to pay them. Can't get anybody. I mean, I can't get anybody to show up. Well, thank you, Mossy Man. I had a wonderful visit back in the spring when Michael came and he helped me out for several weeks. That was wonderful. Hey, Mary, how are you? Um, I think I filled up this bowl to do a 20, and I kind of sort of did, but share me with me if you will. But oh, it's almost 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight, almost 12 my time. I'll be glad when y'all um when your time comes back to mine, because I refuse to set my clocks forward. But anyway, so to all of your ancestors, I told the tree, "Good night, friend." that's that's interesting. It's good that you, and I mean this, Joe. It's good that you have relationships like that. I've got a tree literally right out back that's 2 years old. It came up by itself last year. Took a picture of one of the leaves and it said it's a mulberry tree. So I said, okay. Well, then things happened this spring, and I didn't get around to transplanting the tree. Now, then I had my heart attack. And during the time I had the heart attack in I'm sorry, in July, and the issues I was having before I had the heart attack, which was slowing me down and I was sick. But now the tree is like 10 foot tall. It was this little thing that was like 3 foot. So this year alone, it has grown 6 foot tall beside the house. It can't stay here. It cannot stay there. It cannot, I've got to transplant it. It's got to come down one way or the other. But the fact that it just took over and just shot up, all my friends and neighbors are like, man, like it was just a little tree in the spring. Look at the damn thing. Yep, but it can't stay there. It's got to come up. But I've got to wait until the weather cools down. But it's still got all its leaves. But another reason I bring this up, the other mulberry tree that's out in the yard has lost almost all of its leaves. Now, what's the difference between the two? The mulberry tree next to the house here has been shaded by the oak tree all year long. The tree out in the big mulberry tree out in the open has had full sunlight, and some of the leaves have literally gotten. Oh, be well, Mossy Man. It's good to see you, and thank you. The little tree went through a grow. Oh, it ain't a little tree no more. The damn thing is huge. I'm like, how am I going to move this son of a gun, right? But hey, Mary Wins, how are things in your area of the world? But so in this, I'm always remembering the elders for me, right? But every year when it comes time for the Day of the Dead and All Saints Day in the Catholic religion, and like I said an hour ago ish, the Catholics, they never really included our mothers and fathers and grandparents, and it was all about the saints. It's All Saints Day. So you remembered the saints. Saint Peter, Paul, blah blah blah. You honored all them folk. But they didn't really stress family or that granny's passing, that maybe she was saintly and how she was. So they didn't include, to my knowledge, as growing up Catholic, they didn't include other folkses in this. I think I would have remembered. I mean, uh, so the focus was always about the saints. I say that because the Mexicans, even though they're very Catholic oriented, it goes beyond the saints. So in reading about and studying and talking with Mexican folks, and my good friend, his wife, her name was Patricia, or maybe if she's still alive, her name still is Patricia. But he has passed away. Um, but she was down from around, um, oh, I can't remember. It starts with a T. Toluca, somewhere. Anyway, but having sat with her and her being his wife, having met her for several years, and she used to make me homemade flan that was, oh my God, to die for. Let me tell you. But she was a very nice lady, and we were very good friends, and we shared our cultures as much as possible. I helped with English, and at the time she was helping me with Spanish slash Mexican slash. But in learning someone else's culture like that, I was like, so to have a day to celebrate the elders, great. And I'm pissed at the Catholics, kind of, sort of, still, that they didn't include Grandma. You know what I mean? Oh, it's just about the saints. It's just about the church. It's just about the remembrance of all these famous people. Well, what about the infamous or the infamous people? The unfamous people, your relatives, that only family remembers unless they, were hanged or something, or did something in government, or who remembers this person? What was their whatever in life, right? So, um, in like I was saying earlier, not to be egotistical, but I was thinking about, if it weren't for me and my sister, no one is lighting a candle for my granny. And for those folks who might remember Granny, I don't think they're really lighting candles for her, especially today. And they don't remember. They may remember Granny, but they don't remember her husband, Grandpa, and I do. So when I light a candle for Granny, I'm lighting one for him too, because he got me into stock car racing back in the early '60s. He took me to the races. Um, he owned a little grocery store, and Grandma kept it after he passed away, and so I learned about grocery stores and merchandise and mercantile and how to deal with customers and how to deal with money, how to make change. When I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I could make change. And the big old cash registers that you had to, push down on, and the adding machines with the handle, and being able to do all that at an early age. So what lessons we learned from grandma and grandpa? Well, there are things that I wish that I could pass on to my grandchildren, which I have not been able to do. But I still wish I can or could or whatever. Today is the November the 1st is my granddaughter's birthday. Happy birthday, Sammy, again. But to that point, though, my grandma and grandpa were special in that they taught me things. And were they perfect? No, but they did pass along things. They were my elders. And so I thank them still after all of my 70 years. I I'm still thanking them, you know, for teaching me those things and being kind to me. And my grandma Raleigh was just she protected me from her daughter, which was my adopted mother, who did not take kindly to me and my sister Lynn. And resentment and did weird things and just we don't speak of her much. And because of her actions. But my pops, Arnie, Uncle Arnie, you know, he was a wonderful man. Good sense of humor, loved to eat, have jokes. We used to sit and smoke cigars. He'd come up from Tampa and go to theater with me, and he'd play poker, and he was very engaging. People liked him. Even at his elder age, he hung around with my friends at my age. You know, and he was accepted. Folks liked him, on his own merit, not because he was my dad. It was because Arnie was Arnie and folks liked him. So, when he passed, folks were like, man, let's light a candle for Uncle Arnie, you know, for all the jokes and this. He used to bring cigars up to us, and anyway. So, there are fond memories and good memories of that. And of course, he came out of his shell after Becky passed away, which is a shame that she couldn't share in some of that same kind of, but she wasn't that kind of person. But to have shared that with my pops is what I'm trying to get at. And the joy that I shared, that he shared with himself and our friends, all the poker games and late nights and just having a good time. And he would get stoned because people would pass the joint right under him. The whole room was filled with weed smoke. And he never really took it in front of me or anybody there, but he wouldn't leave the room. So, you know, he got more than a contact high, but, that was Arnie. And we all loved him, for just who he was. And every time a joint was passed, they'd always offer it to him. And he'd always like, well, come on now. And everybody would laugh and they'd pass it right in front of him, knowing that that Uncle Arnie was getting stoned, so simply by being in the room and playing poker with us. But see, now for the Day of the Dead, for a remembrance, that last tip, I can say that's for you, Arnie. That's for hanging out with us when we played poker and such. So why not have a fond memory instead of boo and who? Now, I know there are some friends of mine who've lost some um, a brother and a sister, and um, like for example, my sister Lynn, several years ago, um, her youngest son got a virus like on a Thursday, and he was sick, and by Saturday they'd put him in the hospital, and by Tuesday he was dead. Now it took him, several days or whatever, but he left behind his brother and sister. He may have been the youngest, but in talking with his brother, um, and he's like, how he misses his younger brother. And so it isn't just about old people that we've lost. It's about younger folks and brothers and sisters, and of course friends that have passed away for whatever reason. I was talking with my neighbor up the hill, and she stopped me and she goes, "I understand you've been sick, Dave." And I was like, "Yeah, I had the heart attack and all." And she was a cardiac nurse at the hospital. Now she's in her 70s and they're on meds, and every day is precarious for them too. They have to be careful, with hearts and and all this stuff. And she goes, "Did you hear about Miss Jan, the kidney dialysis nurse that passed away?" And I was like, "Miss Jan?" She goes, "Yeah, she had a weird last name." And I said, "Mojakowski." She goes, "Yeah, that's her." And I said, "She passed away?" "Yeah, she was in a car accident and it killed her. And they just had her funeral last week." And I was like, "No shit, there goes another one. Hey, Steve, how are you?" So it's like there are friends and family and people. And I used to do theater with Jan. Her nickname was Sergeant Major Billman, and she'd been married for a while, and her husband had died, and I don't know if she ever got remarried, but if my neighbor knew her as Majikowski, then she went back to uh, her original name. But to the point, though, that the older I get, my friends and relations are dropping like flies. There goes another one. It's like, holy cow. So I'm very fortunate that I'm still here, you know. But like my neighbor, in a way, by discussing her and having conversation, yes, I knew Jan. And yes, I knew her very well. And at one time, Jan wanted to have an intimate relationship with me. And I just wasn't into it, especially at the time. And so, yes, I was very intimate with Jan after her husband passed away. And yes, not just sexually or physically, but mentally and emotionally. And she helped me through a spot. I'd had an operation on my neck and I needed help. And she was there. I could stay at her house in the extra bedroom, and I had whatever I needed. It was convenient, I didn't have to drive back. There was nobody out here, and since Jan was a nurse, she could keep an eye on me, which she did. And I'm very grateful. But to hear that she was in a car accident and that it killed her, I'm sorry. Oh, gee, there goes another person who was a kind person and who was a dialysis nurse and who helped save many people's lives are, and keep them healthy as possible and so forth. And for shame, she passed away in an auto accident. But rather than be sad about it, I wish to extend on this Day of the Dead, extended, the joy that she, when she worked backstage with in the theater, and the jokes and the parties and the stuff, and the good times that we had. You know, uh, she had a 24-foot sailboat that we went out on several times, um, down off the coast of St. Mark's, and down in the Panhandle. Sailed up and down the coast, during the day several times. Loved it. So fond memories, but these folks have passed away. So who's going to light a candle for them in the respect of the traditions that I've been talking about, in the Mexican tradition? Hey, Regen, how are you? Greetings. Absolutely. You doing okay, Mr. Steve? Regen, I think Mossy Man has stepped out. Things are okay. Tensor tools and jewelry busy. Good, 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 Miss Mary. I think it's important to appreciate your time in this world, even if we haven't been together for much at all. Even a little bit gets the thanks. Thank you, Joe. Well, it wasn't for me in asking the question, will anyone light a candle for me? It wasn't out of ego, it was more rhetorical. I was like, there are all these people that I remember, and I'm sure that somewhere down the line somebody will remember me, but it's that, well, and this sounds very egotistical, and I apologize, but will I have done enough to merit a candle? I mean, there are lots of people I'll light a candle for, but that's my personal thing, to the people that I've known, to the people who helped me when I got out of jail and I didn't have a job, to the people who knew that I was, struggling, and who sent extra food home with me. Would invite me to dinner and say, "Here, take these leftovers. We're not going to eat them." And, okay. And it feed me for the next couple of days, especially if I ate sparsely, you know, and I would eat good. I would eat well, I guess would be the better pronunciation of that. So, there's Ron and Elaine Shanks that I know. Ron has been passed away for many years, but he was one of the funniest men I've ever known. And I got an opportunity to be on stage with him several times, and many more times with his wife in comedies, and we would sing together on stage, and do Christmas carols, and other things too, Miss Elaine. And these are wonderful people, and I would, Jewish folks, and who would sit and talk, and once in a while swipe a piece of ham. Um, they really tried, but not as they weren't strict. And if there was a big buffet of food out, like folks would bring for a cast party, or some shindig or something like that, and Ron would go by, and you'd see him, like, kind of do a double take up and down the thing, and he'd get a piece of ham. you know just, but God bless them, they were so kind to me. They helped me in times when I didn't have a job. They were going to hire somebody to do this job, but they hired me. They liked my work, and were always gracious. If I ever needed a place to crash, I could always stay there. Um, and he's passed away several years now, and I'm not sure if Miss Elaine is still alive, but moved with her family, younger folks, out to California. So, and I have not heard from her, but to the point, absolutely wonderful people to me, and not just me, but other folks, and extended family. And of course, yes, I would light a candle for, Ron Shank and Elaine. Hopefully she's still around. But to the point though that, those people in my life that I guess an appropriate remark would be that I would hold in high esteem, that in some way they help me spiritually, physically, or both, or all of the above. And years ago, there were times when I would literally have mental breakdowns, and somebody's put up with me and my whiny ass attitude and crappy just disposition at times. And I wish that I could talk to them down and go, thank you for putting up with me 20, 30 years ago, literally, because I'm much better now. And I can look back to those times when I was an emotional wreck and taking pills and up and down and back. And I'd had several head concussions, which caused um, personality changes. And the medicines weren't helping when they were supposed to be. But anyway, so to be able to say after all these years, thank you, um, to those many people that have already passed, but to light a candle for them and say, thank you. I honor you for that which you helped me, the meals that you provided when I was hungry, the times when I was all by myself and depressed and didn't know when I was, how I was going to pay my mortgage. Folks would slip money in an envelope and put it in my pocket and go, here's a donation. But wait a minute, no, here's a donation. But I didn't ask. Nah, but we know you need it. From those angel people, and I'm thinking of a woman, very nice lady, whose husband was an Episcopal priest, and she was a music teacher in the high school. And I'm not sure if they're still alive, but they were slightly older than me. I'm hoping that they're still around. But just tuck money in my pocket and go, here, this is for you, because we know you're poor. And I was. Still am, but I'm at least with my retirement money. At least I've been able to manage to learn within my meager income, and I'm happy and content. And I've helped other people out at times, and I'm very grateful and so forth. And if the need arises, I'll help somebody out in the future. Um, you know, and we share and we do what we can for folks. At least that's been my motto. But to other folks, when I had my operations on my neck, who took me into their house for a week to 10 days because I didn't have anyone to take care of me out here. And they didn't want me to be on my own out here after having a major surgery. And so God bless these folks, many of them, like I said, who have passed. But why not light a candle in remembrance of, my good friend Hoyt that, passed away, you know, almost 40 years ago now, is still my best friend in my head because of the things we shared, the things we did, the thing, the people that we did theater and things, and he and I dressed up in drag one time and went around and just visited people. We walked up and down Broad Street in Thomasville and waving at people and just being gay. just for the hell of it. And it was actually in protest. But I shaved my arms. We did our hair up. I mean, it was a big deal what we did. It was for an event, but it was a one night deal, But he had the gall and the balls to get dressed up at like we did and go out and just be silly. So, for those times in my life where it was just outrageous to see other people's reactions to what you were doing or what you did, and the fact that there are still folks, there are still pictures going around with me and Hoyt dressed up in drag, and um, and but it was done with no malintent. Um, and here's the thing: what it was. Here was the thing. It's a short story, but the theater group, we were in contest with what plays to do and who was going to direct them and who's going to be in them and so forth. And so this one year they picked shows where there was very few male parts. So one of the shows was Agnes of God, which is was a one it's a wonderful play. It's a creepy story, and we did it well. I still have some of the props. We did great big pieces of stained glass work on plastic on vellum, and they looked absolutely great backlit. Let me tell you. And we did them the copies from old churches over in England or in France. And I mean they were 12 foot tall and 4 foot wide as the vellum was. But anyway, so to show the church. But in protest that year, Hoyt and I got really stoned and did some mushrooms along the way, and decided that Agnes of God was going to be Fagnus of God. So we dressed in drag to the nines. We planned it days and weeks ahead of time for an auditions. So when they held auditions, we walked in with our purses arm in arm to audition for Fagnus of God. And the place went nuts because it was all women. There weren't any men there. And we had dressed up so well that there were people who, honest to God, did not know who we were. So we, played it up until the director got so pissed off that he was like really pissed off. And we didn't want Joe to be any more pissed off than he already was because we interrupted his auditions. But we left and went around and visited other people and walked up and down the streets downtown Thomasville because we're all dressed up with nowhere to go. And we weren't trying to be pick up anybody or nothing. We were just two white dudes that had decided to dress up in drag and go to these auditions, right? So we were really cute. And there was one person who made the remark that my legs looked better than this one lady's in the theater group. It's like, Mr. Dave, you know, your legs look, you look better in hose and high heels than she does, and she's a woman. And I was like, holy Jesus. So anyway, but to remember the incidents, to remember the people that I got a chance to make other folk laugh, to be on stage with, and to literally make up, 500 people laugh. I mean, they ain't nothing like the thrill of getting a sure enough, they all gonna wet their pants kind of deal. I mean, it. There's nothing like it. And we played some large auditoriums in Thomasville and also down in Tallahassee for me. But the idea, though, and for myself, in that I've done puppet shows in front of large crowds up in Albany, Georgia. So, but to remember the times where, to make people laugh on a grand scale is so cool. It's so fulfilling. Those people that I've had the opportunity to share that joy with, if they've helped me with puppets or they've been on stage with me or whatever, and if it was a play or whatever we were doing, but in order to make a large number of folks laugh at the same time is just phenomenal, you know. So, but I don't do theater anymore, and I'm here with you early in the morning. It's 1:29 a.m. and it's past the 20 mark, so I'll share with you. I'm hoping at times that I can make you laugh or think or giggle, or maybe you're not laughing about something that I said, but that I spark a memory and that you laugh about something that happened in your life, you know, because 70 years that I've been here, it it does feel like a lifetime, but at the same time, having celebrated my 70th birthday and looking back on life, it's just like some of this just seems like yesterday, you know? So that space time continuum, it's like you can go back to that memory and it was yesterday. And then there are some memories as a kid and growing up, going to school, and those are really long, drawn out memories. And they're some of them ain't near as like spot on. I'm right there instantly, and it takes me back. There's no nostalgia there or whatever. But there are some things with certain people, like Hoyt, go and do that audition. That is so crisp and clear. And when I discuss it or thinking about it, I can go right back to that moment and see all those people in the audition, busting out laughing and crying, and the people we went and just the whole nine yards. For example, while we were dressed up on the way home, we stopped at the Ron and Elaine's house, which I just spoke about a few minutes ago, and very devout Democrats. And I'm not sure if Hoyt was a Republican or not, but he went around and talked that he was Republican. So I was the Democrat, he was the Republican, and then we were always at odds with each other when a lot of times we actually agreed. So he goes, "See, you're more Republican than you're Democrat." And I'd go, and now I think I'm registered Republican now after all these years. But anyway, but so we stopped by Ron and Elaine's house dressed in drag, and it was in the evening time, and rang the doorbell, knocked on the door, and we introduced ourselves as two Republican representatives who were campaigning for and of course Elaine and Ron's in the background going, "What the hell are you people doing? Can't you?" So they've got a sign out front that whoever was running for Congress at the time was a Democrat, and we're standing there, and it took them several minutes as we tried to convince them to become Republican that we were, their dear friends dressed in drag standing on their front porch. So that you'd had to been there. It was just us and them, but we laughed and cried, and it was just the fact that we got away with it for 5 minutes, was that in and of itself, So, but my point about that is that for those people that you know or have known who gave that joy, and even if it was just for a moment, in that craziness and the spontaneity of life, the joy of life, it's like, hey, It's not Halloween, but let's go mess with these folks. Let's just go over and, tee hee, oh, and let's stop by this person's house. And let's go over here, by the way. And let's just go, and give them a giggle. That's all. Show up at the door, and for the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sorry to interrupt you, but we just wanted to stop by and make you laugh. So, but for those times in life, that's what joy should be. And I do miss it from those people who passed on. But so in my stories and being here, maybe I can shed a little bit of laughter, a little bit. Y'all did what? You went over to somebody's house dressed in drag and tried to sell them on being a Republican when you knew they were Democrat? Yeah, we did that. Yeah, that's for sure. So a lot of people would not even consider it. Oh, comedy is excellent medicine, Joe. That's kind of sort of why, tonight I wanted to be upbeat, even though there are times when, then in thinking about folks as elders or, folks who have had some type of impact on my life. Now, there are folks I could think about who would still really like to punch, or just slap them. But then there are those folks who just, for whatever reason, you were close friends, or you, at least if you weren't close, the friendship that you had was a good one. For example, one of the guys that I used to, I say play with, it was Ron Scott, and then there was Ron Shank. Ron Scott was Native American. He did theater. He was a director, and we did countless shows together over the many years before he passed away. And every Christmas we did these. It was the Three Beggars, and it was a show about three beggars, and they did this thing, and a blah blah blah. But every Christmas there was Ron Scott, and then there was, and I'm trying to think of his name. Lord have mercy. But a gentle soul who ended up getting testicular cancer and then prostate cancer, and then he finally passed away. Lovely Catholic family, lovely wife, lovely people. And but every Christmas we would do these shows for free. We volunteered our time, and we do it during the Christmas season in Thomasville, where they have Victorian Christmas. So we'd invite people in, and we would do these shows for free during the holiday season, just because we could. We made people laugh. They came in. And what we never got paid for it. The payment we got was the laughter and the clapping at the end. Why I can't remember this one gentleman's name for the life of me. Jim Duke. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Jim. But we played off each other. Jim and I were in a musical together. We were in some other shows together. Ron Scott and I, not to mistake Ron Shank, but Ron Scott. We were in Moliere's The Doctor in Spite of Himself. Laugh your ass off comedy. And having been able to play with these people over the years and to bring joy to the community. Now, I'm talking about this because it's the joy factor that I want to get to. Now, I had a good time as the actor and being able to get folks to laugh. And I'm here telling the stories of the different things. It was like when Ron Scott and I were doing this scene during Moliere's Doctor in Spite of Himself. He's the doctor, and I'm this frivolous Frenchman whose daughter won't speak, and I'm all very, oh, how are you? Very um, gayish, but not gay, very effeminate man. And so the show was produced around Halloween, around this time of year. So one of the friends of the theater, going to a party, was dressed in a gorilla costume. And so this person came in the back and into the audience and sat down in front of the stage, got up and got right in front of him. I mean, put his face, his monkey face, this close to me and to Ron. We kept on doing our lines. We never missed a lick. And everybody thought that the gorilla was part of the show, and it wasn't. And there were the guy that was in the gorilla costume got his nose punched. I mean, he got beat up by the director of the show. So, but there were people who swore for 20 years that, oh no, that would the gorilla was part of the show. And like I said, it was about this time of year. So they thought because it was Halloween that, and we insisted, no, we're sorry, but it wasn't part of the show. It was this guy that came in and actually interrupted the show in the gorilla costume. But then there were the folks who said, you know, you and Ron never missed a lick. Even though there's this gorilla standing there trying to interrupt the show, we did our lines, we stayed in character, we never broke as much as it was difficult to do to break that third wall kind of thing. Um, but so remembering these people on a day like today, because there were so many people that story went on. It made them laugh. They giggled. No, I remember that gorilla came in. It was part of the show. No, it wasn't. Really? Oh my God, I remember that. It was so funny. So the things that we do in life now, whether they remember that it was Ron Scott and myself as the characters, they remember the play. They remember the gorilla, even though it wasn't part of it. And there's still those who remember and who are still alive, you know, they laughed over that for 10 years later on, you know. So to me, that's sort of like a candle without being egotistical, but to have achieved something, in this case, comedy, but somebody remembered and just, you know, I laughed my ass off, Dave. That was one of the funniest things I've ever, you know, and to be true to the spirit and go, thank you, Jesus, on my part, I have the ability and had the ability to be able to make you laugh. And for you to giggle and to to some people they was like, I wet myself. I was laughing so hard. Oh, really? Oh, well, then that makes me feel good. I'm sorry that you ruined your dress, but you know, you peed a little bit. Okay, you know. Um, to this day, thank you to all those people that laughed. And some of them I've known personally would come to two or three shows, depending on what the show was, and bring friends, and you know, and they'd all laugh and have a good time, and so to that to have been able to provide the laughter, but also to have worked with some wonderful people in community theater who genuinely was like me, that wanted to do a good and did. I mean, I'm bragging, but there were some phenomenal shows we've done. I mean, not just comedy, but you know, but other shows. We did the Laramie Project that was very tough to do. A lot of crying, a lot of weeping, a lot of just, whew, that was a tough show to do. But to be able to bring emotion to the stage live in front of people, and I mean literally 2 or 3 feet in front of you. Then we did things on the stage where you were like in the municipal auditorium where you were literally on a stage separated from the people versus the theater building where we did most of our stuff. So to have the audience that close and for them to participate, to be able to feel the emotion, to hear the laughter, to literally see them just a few feet in front of you double over in laughter and hee hawing and throwing their hands up, it's hard to describe. But working with those folks who have passed on, I'm lighting a candle for them, you know, in having this discussion about these people that I've had these wonderful times with. That's the candle. My discussing it and talking about them and remembering them. That's the key. Remembering them. And for me and the people that I knew who got laughs and, to have shared that and the inspiration and the times that we shared what we learned and what we knew about theater, that we shared it with other people. As a director, I invited people in that had never been on stage before, and that started them in community theater. And I think some of my friends are still doing theater, and I gave them their first opportunity, um, to be on stage. So to cultivate people that had and and to say thank you to those people for the good jobs that they did, and because they inspired me. And so it's like, but as the story goes, the older I get, again, it's not an ego thing. It's just sort of a question. Will anybody light a candle for me? And that would be that they have a discussion. That David Knoll guy, what a crazy motherfucker he was. How crazy he was and the nutty things that he used to do. Do you remember? Have you heard the story about him and some guy dressing up in drag? I mean, so the candle lit would be to remember a story or something that I did um, on on in the theater or that I did with puppets. So the candle that they would light for me would be to tell the story about, remember that crazy puppeteer guy? That would be the candle, the remembering. And so, but I'm not worried about it because I ain't gonna know, I don't think. Maybe that'd be cool if I knew in the afterlife. But at one point it was like to make a name for myself, to be infamous or famous for something, or and I had great, doing a YouTube video about, is it about an ego? No, it's not about ego. I try not to make it about ego. And I talk about myself all the time because I don't want to talk about anybody else. I don't have their permission. But as the example, Lady Spitfire, how are you? Uh, for the circumstance, always look at the positive, find the way. Absolutely, Joe. Yep. Even at my age, I pulled on Robert's show tonight. I pulled the snake card, which is transition, transmutation. So every time a snake sheds its skin, right? So it's like a rebirth. So, um, and I'm sort of going through the this transition now after the heart attack with all the medicines and the regimes and the stuff. And so I there are old things that I just got to shed to take over this new stuff, and I have to embrace it because you know I can I want to continue to live and breathe and be around for a little longer. So, I'm being a little egotistical about that. I ain't ready to die yet. Um, Creator said I got some more stuff to do, so I'd kind of like to hang out and see what's in store, right? So, but the idea though that um, I don't want it to be about ego, about me, but it is my story. And but I'm, I've talked about other people's stories, other people dying, other people suffering, other people's heart attacks. And oh Lord, mine was so calm related to other people, and I'm so grateful. And I do want to pass that along. If your body mass thingy index is too high, lose some freaking weight. Figure it out. If you're eating more than one plate of food a day, you're eating too much. There's a thing that they want to, oh, I'm off on a tangent here, but they want me to weigh myself every day. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, yeah, but you need, listen, I know what my intake is. Did I say hi, Lady Spitfire? I'll say hi again. I'm good. I'm glad you're hanging in there. I hope your arms aren't too tired. Nah, bad joke. Drunch. But that I know how much I eat and I know how much I poop. you know, and they want me to weigh my literally. It's like, your daily thing. And the nurses are, but how often do you weigh yourself? And I'm like, once a month. Why? Well, but you should weigh yourself because you may be diabetic. Now, y'all did the blood test and y'all said, I ain't diabetic, my sugar's good. So, but how much do you think I'm going to gain in a day? I mean, honest to God. And these folks are serious, okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not weighing myself every day. Well, why? And I said, because I weighed myself at the doctor a month ago. I was 180 pounds. I weighed myself 2 weeks ago when the nurses were here. I was 178 pounds. I went to the doctor, blah, 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 a week and a half after that. I weighed 179 pounds. The last time I went to the doctor, I was 178. Now, y'all want me to weigh myself every day when over the last 6 weeks, I have stayed within 2 pounds. Why do you want me to weigh? Oh, we need to have your weight written down every day on this chart. And I said, I ain't going to do it. no, no. Who's eating so much that they're going to gain 2 pounds a day or that their weight's going to increase that much? Are you nuts? No, I'm sorry. So some of this medicine, you got to check yourself. Now, I understand checking my blood pressure. Okay, I do. But how much are you eating that you need to weigh yourself every day? I have still not come to grips with that with my friends. Okay. So, Lord have mercy. I mean, oh, well, some of these meds are supposed to trigger weight gain. Well, you have to, if you're going to gain 2 pounds, you're going to have to eat 2 pounds or drink 2 pounds or something, right? So I'm peeing all the time, so I'm not retaining fluid. I understand that. My brother just went through it. He gained like 50 pounds of water. It was horrible. He's much better now. So I could see where that could happen, but you can't weigh more than the fluids you already have. So unless I'm drinking 3 gallons of water, which is about 7 pounds per gallon, and if it ain't coming out of me, then I just 3 times 7, I just gained 21 pounds. Okay, because I'm retaining water. All right, but that ain't happening. I'm peeing so much of this, like, holy mackerel. I am not retaining fluids. So, and how can, if I would have to eat 2 pounds of food a day, and I don't, I just, but I used to eat 2 pounds of food a day. And if you're not crapping on a regular basis, I know this is way off topic, but If you're then okay, I can see you, but to weigh myself every day, nah, I don't get it. From the once a week, okay. So next week I get to go in and have my prostate checked. So they're going to go up my rectum with a big with a big tool and take pictures on the way. Yeah, years ago when I had it done, they actually took pictures of the inside of my my anus and of the polyps that they had taken out. I was like, "Look, everybody, pictures of my inside of my rear end. Yay, team! Lord have mercy." But so at 70 years, I want to say that life is too short. At times, it's been long as hell, and as I've said before, I spent too many years wanting to commit suicide. At now, at my age, I mean, like, how can I extend my life? You know, and there's been some guilt. I will actually say that all these other people have passed away when I feel like they were better people than me. They deserve to have a candle. I don't know if I deserve to have a candle lit on my behalf. But my friend Miss Jan, who was the dialysis nurse for her whole life, for many, 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 I mean, like 40 something years, kind of thing, long time. And as a nurse and helping people, and just being a good person in the community, and to have been killed in an auto accident, for anybody to be killed in an auto accident. But you know, my friend Hoyt was killed in an auto accident, and he repaired CT scanners and worked and was a nice fellow. And I mean, so there's been some nice folks that I have known who've been killed in accidents or with cancer or something like that. But the idea that um, I don't know if I would be worthy compared to these other people that I've known for somebody to light a candle for me. And I'm being brutally honest with myself and with you. But so I would ask this question because it's kind of rolling around in my mind. Is it egotistical or overly egotistical to say, when I'm gone, to have this wish that when I'm gone, I hope that someone in the future will light a candle for me, meaning that they will have conversation and say, that crazy Dave, you know, um, or, the people I've tried to help with providing a place to stay or whatever over the years. And, I was up at the top of the driveway and saw the sign today that's leaning over and that I should go up there and help it stand up better. The little Oclockney River Hermitage. I still mean it. If somebody needs a place to stay or whatever, and come down and I don't have much, but I'll share it. That I still mean that. So, and I'm not looking for brownie points because I honestly want to have a place for someone to come if they need it that is honest and truthful. Um, but does it warrant? It's not like there are hundreds of people coming in and out, okay? But to the folks that have been here, does it warrant a candle? You know, not that I'm doing it to get a candle lit for me when I'm gone, because my intent is to help someone now, not to gain brownie points in the future. Um, to be brutally honest, there's got to be some kind of something in there that says, well, I hope it will make up for some of the wrongdoings I've done. But I'm not doing it to make up for anything I may have done in my past. I honestly mean if you need a place to stay, because I've been homeless, I've lived in a cardboard box, I have shivered in the cold, I have sweat and, fought off mosquitoes. I've been there. And I'm serious. If somebody needs a place to stay for whatever reason, then what little bit I have, I'll share. And I have. But it's not to gain brownie points. And as now that I qualify at 70 to honestly be an elder, because now I'm elderly, whether or not at some point someone would consider, am I in my shaman training, as because now as I learn it, I must share this. So do I share enough information? Do I share enough energy? Do I share enough stories as they are that someone else can learn to be a shaman, that they can see the light, that they can feel the energy around them, that they can accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings in the universe? The prayer that I firmly believe and that I say every time at the beginning and at the end of my videos. I'm serious about this stuff, you know. And so many a time when I'm sitting around or getting ready or doing whatever, my prayers are going out to you folks, whether you'll want it or not. Lady Spitfire, sing the song. Oh, Lady Spitfire. Now that's funny. Wait, what's very toxic to the soul? Joe, I missed that. Hang on, let me go back up. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. The black pill, which is doom and gloom, is very toxic to the soul. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I became so cynical to women in marriage because I kept hearing from the black pill community. Oh, listen, I've tried marriage and living together and trying to be the perfect mate. I gave up. I just gave up, you know. And I really tried. I mean, I literally gave up me with my last wife to make her happy, and all she did was steal and embezzle from me. I mean, 3,000, almost $4,000 I was in cahoots for her after what she'd done and left and emptied the house out. There was nothing in here. Um, I tried during my what fell out. I look at it this way: if someone lights a candle for me, I'll take it. Do I deserve it? Maybe. Do I not deserve it? Maybe. Nevertheless, I'll take an offering with gratitude. Me too, Joe. And I'm not dead yet, and I'm not suggesting that's what people do. But in my looking at the shaman journey and having met other medicine men and shamans, and that, and I've talked about some of these folks over the years, and real people that I've met, real people that made an influence in my life in the short time that I knew them. And that, oh, God, I'll light a candle for this person, because their light was so bright. And I had such high respect and regard for them and for what they taught me and how compassionate and deserve their time and their effort and their talk for them talking to me. That medicine man from that was supposed to be a descendant of Crazy Horse. He looked like Crazy Horse. I mean, people said, he's just guy off the res, you know. But when you looked at his profile, he looked like Crazy Horse. I mean, it was like, I'm just saying. And he's from the Black Hills. I'm just saying. But the fact that this man took time to sit and talk with me during a blizzard in Tullahoma, during a weekend powwow there, and it was a blizzard. I mean, the snow was going sideways. And for him to take the time to stand and talk with me and give me the predictions that he did, and unfortunately, I have not been able to fulfill. I did for a time, and I ain't dead yet. So, um, but the fact that he stopped and um, I may not be perfect, but fundamentally, I don't like be yeah. And you know, and here's some things, Joe, about that. Back in the days when I was an alcoholic, I mean, there was not a day that went by that I did not drink something. I mean, for years. I made my own wine. There were times on Sundays when folks couldn't buy beer. They came out here and knew that I had homemade wine, and we'd get drunk and barbecue and just, you know. So, what is it we are supposed to do? Light a candle and then, oh, Lady Spitfire, about the candle. Um, what I learned about through the Mexican folks that I've known over the years is that today, the Day of the Dead, which for the Catholics is All Saints Day. And of course, if All Saints Day, you light a candle for the saints, right? That you're supposed to be remembering. So it's the fact that you remember them and that you that you remembered them enough to light a candle for them. So, but in my dear friend Patricia, her grandparents and an aunt and an uncle or whatever, and she would put pictures up. I'm repeating myself from an hour and a half ago. But she would put pictures up on a makeshift, hey Miss Pearl, on a makeshift table slash altar, and would offer food. And she had a small votive candle that she lit in front of each of their pictures on this table. But the Day of the Dead is to the remembrance of your elders and grandparents and folks who come before. So the candle is just, it's just a it's significant. The light of the Lord, you could put a bunch of significance in the candle lighting. My discussion of the candle lighting is that now I don't have any candles lit, all right? And I actually should. There's one sitting over there. Okay, I'll light it. All right. But that to light the way, it's to remember. So once a year at this time, and I'm lighting this candle for all the people that I've discussed, for all the elders, for my granny who was so great, for my grandpa who took me at the age of 7 and 8 to stock car races, to to Uncle Arnie who adopted me. So the candle to me is symbolic to remembering. So in the Catholic Church, they've got these, little thingies, and you light a candle and blah blah blah. I was there ears and eyes. I learned so much. Oh, thank you, Pearl. For some reason, I just can't drink it. I can't drink anymore either. I guess the actual day is past. Well, Lady Spitfire, yeah, actually it has, but I mean, if you're in mountain zone, it's still. But in some cultures, also the I was trying to see if I could kind of sort of keep it in frame without it being a nuisance. I'll just let it do that. You can see the side glow. Um, but to light a candle to me is to remember someone. So for me, I'm sitting here and I'm talking about these folks, and I'm talking about the shows that I did and the people that we made laugh, and Jim Duke and I in a couple of the shows that we did just made folks laugh, and to be the straight man and to be on stage just 5 or 10 feet away from an audience and to not break character and to you know remember those moments is lighting a candle. Okay, so the physical lighting of the candle on today. Now, from what I learned from Patricia, was that the Day of the Dead, it was not just the first day of November, but depending on where you lived, and she grew up. I think it's Toluca, Mexico, is where she was from. But that that the Day of the Dead could actually be 2 or 3 days. It wasn't. It like started on November the 1st. It wasn't necessarily just that day, so it could last from one and in maybe some instances up to 5 days. So, but it's just the remembrance of those who came before, to give honor to the elders, to give honor to those folks, who birthed us. I mean, so, but there are all those friends and neighbors and everybody. So there's like one candle lit for that. But then for the, like grandma and grandpa, that was special. Then they had their own little special candle and food on a little plate. And whatever other might be, like maybe there was an incense that was burnt that grandma liked, or whatever the thing. So, but the idea is remembering with a positive attitude these folks that came before us, to the shamans for me that I've never met, to my grandmothers who were all at least half Cherokee, who I never got to meet. I meet them in my dreams. I meet them in knowing that they were here, that they gave me life, and that somehow I still have some of that lineage in me. It has been in me as a child. So even though I've never met them, I don't even know their names, but I thanked them, and I thank them all the time. But the thing is that um, so every day can be a day to light a candle. You know what I mean? Every day can be a day to send a memory. And, there are some friends, like I just talked about this one lady that I just learned that she passed away from a car accident. I wished I didn't even know she was still around or down here. I thought she had moved away, and then I found out she had moved away, but she moved back. And I was like, I wish I'd known that she'd moved back. I'd have went over and seen her and had dinner with her or interacted with her, because we'd been friends before. And then I went crazy, and I guess she moved away. So, but to the point though, that, oh my God, I we were friends before, and I'm assuming we would still be friends had I known that she was back in town, kind of thing. But to find out, but I can still light a candle, and that's by having a good memory, and that's by laughing at the times that, some of the crazy stunts that she and I pulled during theater, or this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I was in a play one time called The Nerd, and I was the main character, the nerd, and I was opening up a birthday card that they handed me on stage. So the prop had been, oh, now this is the last day of the show. The prop had been just a birthday card, right? And it said blah, blah, blah in it, and I just opened it. Well, the last day of the show, they pasted n- naked pictures of women. Now, these were women who did this, okay? Pasted naked women, pictures from Playboy or something, inside this card. Now, there's people over here on the side of the stage because they were like right up against the stage who could see the inside of the card. Now, I didn't know it, but one of the pictures had come loose from the glue that they had used, and out falls this naked picture from a Playboy, you know, breasted woman, right? And I'm like, oh, holy crap. So, talk about funny. And then, but it was that there were those things. For example, we'd had tea for our drinks at the end when me and this other character toasted and cheered, and the lights would go down. Well, the last night, there was real Jack Daniels in there. So when poured it out of the same container, right, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, holy crap! So the other actor just keeps pouring there. So there's this great big shot of Jack Daniels, which I like Jack Daniels. There's some still here in the house. And I've been to the brewery, the distillery up in Tennessee. But to like, we're just going to chug this, supposed to have been a shot glass full, has now turned into a half a glass full of Jack Daniels. So to chug this, so on the last night, the little pranks played to the actors, some of them were kind of mean. But the night they put the naked pictures in the birthday card that fell out on stage and everybody saw it, that was a big guffaw. But Miss Jan, who just I found out it was in the car accident, was one of those ladies involved in playing the prank on me because she was backstage um, prop master. So, but anyway, so to light a candle for those that have passed and for those who have given us joy, for those folks who, in a lot of ways, what have I done in my life? Well, I was a machinist and, I worked in a factory and I worked cleaning out people's toilets and I've worked building porches onto people's houses and I've worked at doing odd jobs. I worked on a carnival for a long time. So you would say, well, but this person was a nurse and saved people's lives, and she deserves a candle because of all the good deeds she's done. Me, I look over my life and what the fuck did I do, right? Whose life did I save? Do I deserve a candle? Well, she damn sure does, along with these other people who were influential in my life and who helped me and who helped other people as well. And so, and I'm not here to try to get folks to light a candle for me, at least not consciously, but in the honest, let's take a look at this. Ain't that really what I'm sort of doing? I do want to help people. I do want to have conversations. And maybe that will help me to become more spiritually enlightened as I'm learning to be a shaman, as I am a shaman in training. So, is this part of it? I'm not asking anybody to light a candle. I don't ask anybody to hit the like button. I'm not out for numbers or whatever. I'm genuinely here in that I hope that I can help folks. And if anybody needs help, give me a call. If anybody like Michael that came down and spent 3 weeks with me, out of the blue. Am I serious about it? Yeah, he came down to test me. And he was I hope he's still okay. He's over in the Ukraine area. He volunteered to go and to now they're supposed to be paying him, but volunteered to go teach English to folks. So when he doesn't even know their language, but anyway, so um, we meet people during our lives, and you can become the recluse and not meet anyone, or you can put yourself out there. And I've talked to this because there are some friends of mine who go, I just don't agree with you doing your live streams. You talk about all kinds of stuff. You're way too personal. You've told people that you've never met that's out there on the net about things in your life and family and stuff. And it's like, oh, I don't even know if I would do a video, let alone talk about my personal stuff. Yeah, okay. Why do you do it, Dave? Okay, Hawkeye. It's because I don't want to talk about anybody else's life. It just wouldn't be right unless they gave me permission. But so and the only way I can actually get to folks is to be honest and to be brutally honest. And I've talked about stuff, just so, but is it to get brownie points? No, it's to try to help somebody else in whatever situation they are in life. And I'm hoping, in talking about this lighting a candle kind of thing, I just hope that my life has been good enough or well enough, and that I will continue. Um, that at some point after I'm gone, that I will deserve a candle. And I can honestly say that's not trying to be egotistical, because if I deserve a candle, then it means I've done something right. It means I've helped someone. It means I've inspired someone. So and it doesn't have to be an actual candle. It's that somebody at some point in the future will just simply remember me. That's all. Or remember a conversation, or hopefully that they will remember and they will laugh and get a little bit of joy and go, that crazy some bitch, and he made me pee my pants one time. He told this story and I laughed so hard I almost puked. And but I thought I farted, but I had to put on clean underwear. It just and back when a hoe was a hoe and Coke was a Coke and crack was what you're doing when cracking jokes. Yeah, back when. Oh, and a crack was your butt, you know? Back when being edgy wasn't affected by political correctness. Each day gets harder and harder instead of any easier. Time seems to make it hurt, not heal. I'm sorry, Lady Spitfire. There are things that had me for years, and it was things about my being adopted, the way my quote adopted mother treated us, me and my sister, and just certain things. Um, and I finally had to put him in a different category, so I can think about him now. Man, if I could let the emotions come up, and it pissed me off or make me nostalgic or make me cry. But I realized that, I can relate the stories and talk about things without bringing emotions into it every time. And so I can allow the emotions to come into the memory. But if I choose to leave the emotions out of it, whatever it is, then I can talk about it. And even, in some of the really nasty stuff, find some humor in it. Like, man, I'm glad I shouldn't didn't like blah 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 blah. And so even though it was tragic, and you know me, I try to the light was just annoying me. But I still have the candle on over here. Now I don't know your situation, but if you each day we can allow it to get heavier, or each day we can say, well, that some bitch is trying to, be heavy on my brain. Get away, go away. And turn it into a frivolous thing. Now, I'm not, whatever it is that you may be dealing with that says each day harder and harder instead of easier. Time seems to make it hurt, not heal. I had to go inside and just say, listen, this is not going to hurt me anymore. This is just not, because there's lots of decisions and things that I've made with my children and grandchildren and things that I've said and done, and I'm all I can do is say that I'm sorry for all the crazy crap that I did, and I mean it, you know. And for those who have allowed me to, I've had conversations, we've become friends again or whatever. And so, and for those folks who still want to hold a grudge, that's your fault, not mine. But at the same time, putting myself out there with this YouTube video thingy, I wouldn't have met all of you. I wouldn't have met Steve or Joe or Miss Pearl or Lady Spitfire. I wouldn't have met any of you. So I put myself out there to be honest and to tell my life story, not to get your sympathy or to get your praise or, I haven't asked for money or likes on the channel. It's that I'm here for us to be friends and let's have conversation and let's learn about stuff, you know? Life experience. What is life? Well, life can be hard as hell. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still having issues with my medicine and my heart. But I just ain't gonna let that shit get me. I'm like, son of a bitch, yesterday I slept all damn day and it was just pathetic. And I said, I'm not going to let it bother me. Maybe I was in a healing process. I wasn't in a bad mood, had some crazy dreams. And I thought, well, but basically the day was ruined. I didn't get nothing done yesterday. Fed me and the animals and tinkered around a little bit, took trash up to the driveway and got the mail, but that was it. And so, but at the same time, where several years ago, a day like yesterday would have put me into a depression. Oh my God, I didn't get anything done. Oh my God, I didn't achieve anything. Oh my God, I slept again all day. And oh my God, the medicines are making me feel sleepy all the time. And oh my God, I cannot go there. And there's a big part of me because there's all these 11, 12 bottles of medicine sitting right beside me right here are my new life. If I want to keep my heart well and everything, I should take all these meds. And y'all know me, several months ago, I hadn't taken any meds for years. So we have to adjust. Um, and we have to put things in perspective, meaning that This is a new life for me. I have a heart condition. And if I want to survive, then I've got to make changes. I have to be like the card that I pulled today, which was the snake card. I have to transmutate. I've got to shed that skin of whatever it was and take on this new one. I've got to learn how to deal with these meds. I've got to look because I ain't dead yet, and I don't have any cancers or anything. Knock on wood. And after my colonoscopy next week, I get to vote and get a rod shoved up my butt on the same day. And I thought about this and thought, I could get screwed twice, both in the same day. Being here in Georgia, from, hey, Travis, how are you? I'm doing as well as I possibly can. And I hope that you're doing well in your area as well, Travis. I had to put a lot of effort into not even thinking about, even if it's a great memory, because the minute I do, I just cry. I understand there were certain things, and I can only say, now this was years ago, and you've probably seen the transition since the time that I've been making these videos, in the transition myself. But in that, I had to go in so deep and take a look at some of this stuff and go, look, ain't it about time we quit crying over some of this shit? And I'm it wasn't Dave, because Dave went off on a tangent, but as Hawkeye and the persona of Hawkeye, and if I'm playing a character, which I'm not, but understanding, having played characters, that if I am Hawkeye, then Hawkeye has to be able to control his emotions better. And I've had some very dear friends that just sent me into tears, and situations that sent me into tears. And um, Davina Ramnath, interesting name. So, but in that, my wrestling wasn't with the memory. The wrestling match was how I responded emotionally to the memory. So, like, being pedophiled by the priest, anger, frustration, shame. Every time, oh, resume, I'd go into this, closet, if you will, this closed up. And then, as I came out of the closet with the discussion, I was pissed all the time. I wanted to kill them mofos. I wanted to hang them by their canads. I wanted to see them suffer. I wanted to, and then I had to get over that, you know. So I, in my learning to be a shaman, in my training, I had to go so down deep inside of questioning, and why do you feel this way, and what's the anger, and do you understand that you need to quit being pissed? It's not doing you any good. Or the things that I cried about, which were quite a few things back during the time. I was very weak-minded and very frail, very, very frail. Watch my earlier videos, my way earlier videos, very frail. So in my shaman journey during this, it's to have courage. And the courage is always there. So I can bring up the memory of my dear friends, of love relationships that for whatever reason I couldn't maintain or keep or whatever. And I'm alone now with the dog and the cats. But I thought I was going to be hand in hand, and me and the old lady were going to sit out on the porch and watch the sunset. We were going to go fishing together. I was going to have a kayak mate. Ain't none of that happened, Did not work out the way I was hoping, that I was going to find that true mate and we were going to go camping and tripsing around. And nope, came close, but, you know, some of them people were just downright crazy. But what I learned about all of this was, for me, there was a lot of anger that I had to, but I need to talk about this without being angry every time. Now I need to be able to talk about this without crying every time. I need to talk about this. Now, if I want to be the shaman, if I wish to follow my path, then I need to learn how to control these things so I can have conversation with people and not be emotionally whatever overtaken by the subject matter I'm talking about, if this makes sense. So, and Miss Lady Spitfire, not that you have to, but if the desire to control it then is that it's not about forgetting or losing the memory. It's about controlling the emotion over the memory. That's all. So if something's making you cry, then just go through it. If you're trying to cease and desist the emotion, accept it. But then at the same time, if it's um, the loss of a loved one or the loss of something, okay, that brings you to tears, what I found that you set a limit and say, like there are some over in the Middle East, there are folks, they actually hire mourners. They hire people to cry for the person who's died. Okay. There are people who get paid for it. Okay. They are professional mourners. All right. So, but what, and I was told this by a therapist, set a limit. If you're trying to get rid of whatever it is, say, look, I'm going to cry about this, but on November the 5th, I'm just tossing it out there. I decide that I'm not going to cry over this anymore. I'm going to cry like hell and get all my crying done over this. But when the 5th of November comes, I have decided that I could still cry over this, but I'm going to have control over this emotion now. That whenever I think about this or whatever this subject comes up, I'm going to be able to control my emotions. It's not that you try to forget it. It's not that you can't cry over it in the future. It's that you have made a decision to control your emotions when this subject or whatever comes up. And it's up to you. I mean, there are times when I said, I ain't gonna cry over this anymore. And then there's been times when I have, after I made my rule, that I would had gotten so into the discussion and talking about it that emotions, it was hard to not have emotions come up because I had described something in such detail. So, and it's difficult to keep emotions out of that. So, but on a personal note, and it's up to you, you don't, it's like for me and being able to talk about things to y'all. I didn't want to weep every time I talked about this. And look at my very earlier videos. I did because I was much weaker in that. I will absolutely admit that I was weaker. And so, and it's up to you as to whether or not you choose to try to be stronger. Ain't me or anybody else's decision as to what you should, do in that respect. But if you're trying to control things that are constantly hurting you, then stop and take a good look at that hurt. And, it's like, look, this has hurt me all the time. Well, why? I mean, if you got a thorn in your foot, pull it out or go to the doctor and get, whatever it is. But if you've got a thorn in your side and you don't do something about it and you just leave it there, then kind of sort of shame on you because you're allowing it to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have the emotion and that you shouldn't in the future. Ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that wouldn't you like to just have control of your emotions? That you say, well, um, I'm 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 just not going to let. I've cried enough over this. I have wept. I have sweated blood, and that's enough. That's enough. Now I've talked with a lot of old people who, in losing spouses and in talking with my own pops, with Arnie, you know, he remembered Becky, and it was hard for him not to remember her on a daily basis. But he turned his life around, and we got to know each other, and um, he moved to a golf course, and you know within a city block or less, actually a half a city block, he was on the golf course and could play every day if he wanted to, all day long if he wanted to. And it's what he loved. It's what he decided to do in his retirement ages. And he did other things. He was hung around his grandchildren and would come and visit me up here in Georgia. But to the point that, at some point when we had this discussion, he said, I just can't cry about your ma anymore. He said, she's dead, she's gone. We've lived all these years together. We worked together. We had a house together. We had a life together, but she's dead. Yes, I still love her, but she's dead. And so he had made up his mind that yes, she's still there, but he had gotten rid of a lot of stuff that reminded him of her because there were some things that did to me and to my sister he did not appreciate. She was He was Catholic and he married her, but there were some things that he really did not appreciate that she had done. And so he kind of saw that she was nutty too, but he put up with her. But my point about this though, was that he set a date, he set a time and said, enough's enough. I'd feel empty and feel really alone if I didn't have my tears. No, it's not strange. It's understandable. But here's the point, Lady Spitfire. At some point, and I'm hoping because I've talked with a lot of widows and widowers, men and women, and how did you deal and whatever. And they say that you just reach a point. Now, there are some stories in literature about how the old maid lived and died, and she closed off her room, and I watched an animated version of Great Expectations the other day by Charles Dickens, where Miss Habersham, you know, kept her house boarded up because her lover or fiance or whatever left her standing and so she couldn't find any love and in her life and she boarded up her house. Well, okay, well that's the extreme. But in life, everyone will find their own spot where they say, okay, I don't have to cry to remember this person. I don't have to shed tears every time for this person to be remembered. In fact, I could smile every time I think about this person. So rather than shedding tears, you turn those tears into smiles. Man, that was a great time we had that time. Now you can cry at any time. It ain't like ain't nobody telling you yes or no or whatever, but it's a personal decision. And I with all the different folks, and they just say, I just reached a point, Dave, where I said, I'm just not going to cry over this anymore. I have shed my last tear. So, but everybody's got their own spot for whatever it is, where it be it a person. I mean, I still cry over my little dog Sasha. I miss that little dog of mine. Lord have mercy. Um, but and other people that were close to me, I miss them, and there are tears that well up in the back of my, and it's okay if they do, but at the same time, it's like I have learned that it's much better for me and the memory of whoever I'm trying to remember is that laughter works so much better. Finding something to laugh about, and there might be, I ain't gonna lie, there might be a corner in my eye, there might be a tear, and might be one over there on that side. Ain't gonna lie, but mostly it's that it's a smile, even though I miss them, even though, but I've had enough crying, for whatever it is. So for me, a lot of the anger and crying, and especially shame, was over the Catholic priest incident. That nobody believed me that I'd been pedophiled, that nobody believed about this priest or that. I cried, I wept, I wanted to commit suicide. A lot, a bunch, and all because of them sons of bitches. And so I got angry. I mean, I got angry, anger down inside my gut that just like, I mean, want to hurt somebody angry. So, but much like crying or tears, now I don't really joke about the pedophile thing. That's a touchy subject. But instead of crying and being angry about it, I have just become neutral. It can still piss me off if I let it. But it's different than losing someone and missing them and crying over that. Okay, I understand it. But when it comes down to controlling the emotion, it's in the same ballpark. Different subject, different thing, but you're still dealing with the emotion of it. Do I choose to cry or not? Yes or no? It's up to you. But to the point, though, where whoever the person is decides to say, that's enough tears. I've had enough. I don't want to forget them, but I've had it. There ain't no more tears. That's enough. And nobody can tell you when it's enough. Only you. And, but here's the thing. If you're inviting the tears, then you should stop that. If you feel that the only way to be connected is by crying about it, there is a better way. Okay. And it's okay to cry. But if you feel that that's the only way, let me tell you, it ain't the only way. Because so many other people, quote, have gotten over it, and that they have changed those tears because they have drawn this line in the sand for themselves. I'm just not going to cry about this anymore. You can choose to cry at some point, like I said, in the future over something, but that nope, I'm going to control this emotion, and I'm cried out. But until you cry out, until you make that I've had enough of for whatever it is, when you said, okay, I've had enough. Now, for those folks who might be having trouble having had enough, then I go back to that, and these were therapists that say, look, Tell yourself, okay, by the end of the month, I'm going to quit crying about this. Or at the end of such and such. So you give yourself enough time to grieve about whatever it is you're grieving about. You give yourself plenty of time, but then at the end of it, like those folks in, the Middle East and some places in Italy and places where the women will wear black for 30 days or something. Well, once those days of mourning are over, it's over. Okay. Get all your crying out, get all your blubbering, go ahead and do it. But when that time is over, then release it. Doesn't mean you forget them and that you quote have gotten over them. That ain't it. But you're done mourning them. I know that's a sad subject to discuss, but on remembering people, is it better to remember your dear friend with tears or with laughter? Ah, man, I choose laughter anytime, you know. But I still will have the tear in the eye. I ain't gonna lie. But when I used to break out bawling, big crocodile tears, and be sad for days, no. But it's not good for you in the long run, that's for sure. But no one can tell you when that time is over. Let me see. I wasn't reading. Let's see. Why does somebody that's lazy in the relationship want the other person to pour out their feelings before ready to? Yeah, I don't know. I've lived with several liars in my lifetime. If your woman farts around you, she'll cheat on you. What? That poor woman went through her entire life not farting around her husband. Oh my God. That's so crazy. Counselors say what's important is to process your emotion. Everyone these days comes together and validate each other's feelings. It's like a room full of fart makers. Everyone talks about trouble with farting. Nobody thinks to open a window or how to fix it. That's funny, Joe. I find it hilarious. Thanks for sharing. Regen, I don't know. There are those of us who are more open or more talkative or more, verbose. And then there are those folks who wouldn't talk about shit, about themselves or open up. We went to sleep at night. Only one of us woke up. I couldn't have done it if I wasn't drinking and sleeping hard. I just want to know his thoughts. I have no one else. Hey, Chloe, how are you? And Lady Spitfire, what you just said there, but um, I could have done something if I wasn't drinking and sleeping hard. I would have heard something. See, so in that, you're taking blame. And at some time, see, now I'm going to use the priest thing. For a long time, I had shame because they were the masters, they were in control, and they were my elders, and they were, and I was a young kid and was crazy thoughts and not understanding and was led astray by these men of power in the priesthood. And so the shame of it, And so it seems like you're kind of sort of, in a way, going through a similar thing. And that I could have done something is the phrase, right? And you said it. So you have to deal with that too. So I'm said to myself, well, I could have said no. I could have said something. I could have done something. I could have, beat the tar out of these two priests instead of letting them do. Of course, the one I almost did, but to the point of it, there is a shame in there that somehow it would have been different. And it might not have at all made it different. Now, for me, it did. I could have spoke up. I could have left. I could have done something. But in trying to trust the person, it went too far. And then you just go like, well, now what, right? But after the fact, so the feeling of guilt or shame or whatever it is, you got to sit down and say, okay, you got to forgive yourself. You whatever it is, you got to deal with it. And it was one of the hardest things I've had to deal with in my lifetime was to get down and get nitty gritty in the process of what those priests did to me, how I let it happen, what happened, the events that led up to it, and those subsequent things since then. Why am I still being ashamed of it? It wasn't on YouTube or nothing. Nobody posted it on Facebook. Now I posted it on Facebook and I brought it out and told people about the different priests from MHR and from Tampa Catholic and so forth. I brought the subject out. But to the point though that at the time that it happened to me, I didn't. But all the years of shame, personal shame, because it did happen, and I didn't do anything. But and I was quiet about it, and I didn't say anything, and so we take that personal shame or guilt, whatever, however you want to place it. Um, So then that brings tears or anger. Hey, Katniss, good morning to you as well. So we have to deal with those emotions on a gut wrenching, tearful, yank your hair out kind of, depending on who you are and what you're going through and whatever trauma or whatever it is that you're dealing with. So, but if there's any guilt involved with the tears and the crying, you got to deal with that. Oh, holy moly. You got to deal with that because it's over. There's nothing you can do at this point, just like me. There was nothing I could do. I could talk about it and I could talk about the priest and I could be open with that. That's what I could do about it. But then after I got done making that, then I got to quit being angry. I got to quit being pissed because it's ruining my life. All I want to do is die. All I want to do is commit suicide because of the shame and the guilt and the no, I'm sorry, get out of here, go away. But I lived a lot of my life because of it. So that's why I like to know what he thinks. I think he says he wouldn't have wanted to go any other way. That has glad it was me that was there for his transition. You just want to hear more. Well, it seems like what you just said, you already know a lot, Lady Spitfire. Just in that one paragraph that you've just given me, um, there's a lot that's already been said. So what needs to happen is you need to put a smile on your face and just cogitate on it. You just need to cogitate on it and go, if this is how he felt, um, you shouldn't have to hope. It's already there. If that's what was already, he wouldn't have it any other way. That he was glad it was you that was there for his transition. There is so much in that, my dear. That's he lit a candle before he went. Would you say that what happened to you would control you if you never let it? It did control me, Joe, for years. All I wanted to do was commit suicide. I did not want to be a part of this life. I mean, 25, 30 years of my life I spent wanting to die. He was the candle. You got it, Lady Spitfire. Did I say it or was I about to say it or did you get it? He was the candle. Absolutely. And you should smile about that for somebody to tell, you said he lit one. Well, he lit it with you in you. But anyway, I was thinking it and you said it back to me. So you, hopefully you got it. Yeah, I couldn't let it go. The thing about the priest, I mean, I went through 25 years of therapy. I ain't lying. I mean, went to mental health, took medicines, went through the whole thing. I went through all kinds of different types of therapy. And I'm here to tell you, I had to go to great depths to forgive. I'm still having trouble saying that I forgive them because, to be honest with you, I really don't. Um, I say I forgive their behavior because they were crazy pedophiles. But it's still hard for me to go. "Nyeh." There are people who have hit me, done physical things to me, uh, try to ruin my career, blah, blah, blah. And I have forgiven them. But those priests, I just, I can say that I went from wishing them harm and wanting to kill them and wanting to beat them to death and wanting to be angry and mad all the time and wishing them harm. I can say that I don't do that anymore. Have I forgiven them? I don't want to kill them anymore. Do you forgive them? I don't want to kill them anymore. I don't want to do them bodily harm. They're probably dead anyway because I'm 70 and they were much older than me. So but at some point, I had to say, look, I don't want to kill him anymore. I don't want to do him bodily harm. And I'm not going to think bad things like, I hope I hope you get, somebody shoves a telephone pole up your ass. They would probably like it, but that's beside the point. Um, no, I hope somebody castrates you. Those kinds of things. I had to say, okay, that's it. I I'm to carry any more of this forward in my life is a negative. And I want to go forward. You for those of you who've been around with me long enough, I've talked about the old timers who picked cotton. And so when the old timers talk about a long row to hoe, and but when picking cotton with your sack, so when you got to the end of the row, now look at some of them old pictures of them folk carrying them big old burlap sacks down a long row of cotton. Now what you do is you want to empty that sack at the end of that row, because you do not want to pull that sack that's already got one row in it and drag it to the other end of the field, because now you're going to be dragging twice as much. So what you do is when you get to the end of the row, so the end of the row is the end of whatever it is you want to end. All right. If it's feeling guilty about something, if it's being mad about something, whatever it is, you choose the end of the row. Now, if you get to the end of the row and you want to keep pulling that big old sack of cotton down all the way back down that field to the other end, if you want to tote that sack, so I think of it in terms of, wait a minute, I'm at the end of the row and I have decided I'm going to empty it here. I'm gonna go down this next row. Yeah, they long rows and it's a big field and it's hot out there, but I ain't toting this sack all the way back to that field. Oh hell no. I'm dumping it out here. You know, I'm gonna empty this sack and I'm going on down. So in the picture of life, going down that next row, that's life. I'm gonna still be in the field, you know, collecting or whatever, or the in the field of life, or you get my drift. But in this, but now when I get to the end of the row, I'm gonna dump that puppy out. I ain't toting that shit no more. So if you're toting guilt or remorse or sadness or whatever, it's up to you. Do you want to keep toting it, or do you want to give it up? Now a lot of folks say give it up to Jesus. Okay, you can just say that's enough. You can give it to the universe. You can give it to Jesus. You can read the Bible. You can go to Hallelujah chorus or whatever. Or you can just say, enough's enough. I can still think about this person. I can still, for me, I can still discuss the pedophilia up to a point before it irritates me and I want to kill something. But over the years, but it has taken a lot of control. It took a lot of therapy. I mean, bunches of years. I did not do this overnight. But that's why I want to help guide other folk and go, look, nobody told me that I could put a time limit on this. Nobody told me that I could have all the emotions, I could scream and holler and jump up and down, but then set a date and say, okay, that's it. Scream, holler, jump up and down. But when the 5th of November comes, just as some kind of date, that's it. It's not going to piss me off anymore. I'll talk about it. I can discuss it. Not that it's like my common everyday, let's talk about being pedophiled by the priest. But when it's appropriate or whatever, okay, I can have a discussion and discuss it without being angry, without crying, without feeling guilty, without having the shame come back up. I can talk about the guilt. I can talk about the shame, but not, I don't feel shameful inside. I don't feel guilty anymore because I have put my emotions aside with those things. But I went through 30 years of it easy. So, but anyway, the things in life that bother us, we do have the choice. And there are ways to deal with it. And there are ways to deal with it in a kind way. It's like someone can say, well, You just need to straighten your shit out. You need to forget about it and move on. Well, that is true. But you can do it in such a way as like, listen, my dear friend, if this is still bothering you, do you want to fix it? Do you want to still cry? Do you want to still have this emotion? Or do you want to try to, get better? Do you want to deal with it? It's up to you. And if so, there are ways you can do it. But it is up to you. Nobody can make you do it. Nobody can choose the time for you to give it up or get over it or to move on. And so those folks who say that don't give you a plan or a model to go by. I just sort of gave a model to go by. And that you deal with the certain things and you give yourself say, listen, I'm 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 just going to set a date. It'd be like giving up cigarettes or quit drinking or whatever it is that you decide to do. Ain't nobody can make you do it. So it's up to you. But if you stick to whatever your decision is, then you'll reach a level of consciousness. Because when I quit being angry, oh my God, I'm oh my God. When I dealt with it on that deep, way deep level, from what those priests had done to me and all the guilt, when I put it aside and took emotions out of the equations and I settled it with myself, within the next couple of days, I could absolutely feel a difference. My heart was lighter. I slept better. There were just, life was different. I didn't have this unseen cosmic evil nasty force laying on top of me because I said no more, go away. And it went away. And every time it tried to come back, I went nah 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 with a smile on my face rather than go away. You promised that I was going to deal with it. I wasn't going to cry about this or get mad about it anymore. I have been mad about the priest since then, but it was very short lived and I got over it. But it took me years. So, but here's the thing, once I decided I'd had enough of the torment, of the whatever, Dave, have you had enough? I don't know. I mean, I had this literally conversation back and forth with out loud with myself. Dave, have you had enough of this shit? I don't know. I'm still mad at them motherfucker. I've cooked, I can't live the shame and the guilt. Have you had enough of this? Well, yeah, I have. Well, then shut up. If you've had enough, then quit. I mean, I had to be brutally honest with myself. But having had this out loud conversation with myself, I was just like, part of me is the therapist, right? And in that conversation with self, I learned about the tribe of one. So I learned that inside of my emotions and of me, with the different types of personalities that I have, my body demands sleep. Time to go. Good night, Joe. Love you. We were haphazardly living in the fullest for sure. And this month is so much more harder than last. I gotta go. Also, my head hurts and thanks. Lady Spitfire anytime. And send prayers for healing. And it's all right to mourn, but there's a point where you just, and it's up to you, but you got to be nitty gritty with yourself and say, okay, enough's enough. When your head hurts enough that you say, okay, I've had it. Because I have cried and shed tears, and I do, not in the same way, but I do absolutely understand. But when your head hurts so much and your tears and your mood and you just finally, if you just say, look, okay, yeah, we are all sorry for your loss and etc. But when the tears want to come, it might be that you just light a candle and say, here are my tears. Here's a candle. And a little votive candle. And but to the point though that you're not going to forget them or forget whatever it is. And it's not about forgetting, but it is about controlling the emotions. You can say, um, you know, you can talk about this is a really bad analogy, but you can talk about tornadoes without worrying about your house being blown over. You can talk about tornadoes without worrying about going to the land of Oz and getting sucked up like, Dorothy did. So, but in life, there are things that you can say, okie doke. But listen, I'm getting ready to go to bed too. It's been, for what it's worth, it has been a joy in talking with you all. And even though we're talking about the Day of the Dead, it's the Day of the Dead in the remembrance and the honor of those who have passed. And that we honor them with smiles. We honor those folks who were gracious and grateful to us and who meant something in our lifetimes. We repay them with smiles. We repay them. The candle that we light are the memories that we bring and the stories that we tell and the smiles that we have when we think of these people. That's the candle. So I continue to pray. I got a butt ache. I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Now, in having this conversation and being a little egotistical about, I'm hoping that at some point someone will light a candle for me when I'm gone. But that, maybe in our lifetimes, if we thought about it and how we do as people in this life, if you would look at your life and say, I hope that I do a good enough job in this lifetime that someone will light a candle for me when I'm gone. Is that really such a bad goal? I hope that my life can mean something enough that someone will light a candle for me. That ain't half bad. That's not necessarily a bad goal. Because if you've done something well enough for somebody to remember you. Now, I remember my stepmother, and not with much fondness. So there are those folks that you remember with regret and dismay, and maybe a little bit of hatred thrown in. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do or have done. But so I'm not trying to score points, but maybe having a goal, like I hope in my lifetime, and I'm meaning this for y'all, that your goal is that you will have done lived a good enough life that somebody will light a candle for you. That's not a bad goal, and I don't think it's necessarily egotistical, because lighting a candle ain't like erecting a statue. You know what I mean? No placards or anything like that, but just a fond memory and light a candle. Thank you very much. So I continue to pray, just like Duggar and I do when we go outside every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many, many blessings that are out there just floating around in the universe. And in that law of three, which I know is important to you and me, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, and all of your relatives and relations will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings that's floating around out there in the universe. Remember that the Creator and the Great Spirit is all around us all the time. Believe, 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 believe. And whether or not you intend to be a shaman in training or not, thank you, ladies Spitfire. Chloe, much love back to you. Joe, much love to you. Davina, it's good to see you. Travis, you're yeah, I hope that. Yeah, I get to go to therapy tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. Oh, and go do some stretches. But anyway, much love to you all. Please be safe. And just seriously, there are folks that forget that the universe is all around them and that they have the choice to either cry about it, get pissed about it, laugh about it, be depressed about it, and, hopefully you all will choose, even in the direst of times, to put a smile on your face. Anyway, much love, everybody, and have a great day yourselves, okay? And until next time, I am your humble host, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Cheers and ween, the power of ween. And cheers. Be safe, okay? Keep it between the ditches. Adios, my friends.